Welcome to Red Pill University. I am Joe. I'm here with Mike. So tonight is episode, I believe, 200, not 200, 207. It's our 200 series. So just for those who are watching, not the 207th episode. I think we're up to around 60 or so.
Episodes? Wow.
Yeah, it's going fast. So, well, videos. Yeah, put it that way. So I think this is around our 23rd video in the Red Pill University series. So tonight we're going to do a quick recap of what's happened over the week. And whoops, where'd it go? There we go. All the way to the beginning. So, all right, it is September 8th, 2020. A few things have happened. So Red Pill School, he threw down the gauntlet with the Reddit admins. So for those that have not seen it, right here from the subject line, the Reddit admin operate in bad faith. They lurk in the shadows to generate post hoc rationalizations for ideological censorship. A proof and challenge to the Reddit admin. And there's a reason he did this. It's kind of to entice a response, I think. That's my opinion. But there's also things happening, so certain subs will be going away, probably, maybe in the near future. Maybe it's AskTRP, maybe it's the main subreddit, maybe it's one of the other spinoffs. So, in preparation for the inevitable poof of these subreddits, get your ass in gear, head over to trp.red, go to one of the tribes. We also have our private community here through YouTube and Discord. Links are down below in the description. Go check us out.
Highly recommend that.
Yep. Definitely highly recommend it. We do all kinds of mentoring throughout the week. It's a lot of it's peer-to-peer. We also have trained professionals, fitness, lifestyle, finance, you name it, entrepreneurs. These guys all know their shit and they're at the top of their game. They are here doing volunteer mentoring to help you and help us help you. So we all learn from one another. You're the average of the people you spend the most time with. Well, what better way to learn than to spend a lot of time with guys that know their shit? So that's where we kind of come in with the private community. If you want to join as an official member of the private organization, head over to Patreon. It's $5 a month. That money goes towards helping Mike buy new headphones, helping me buy new lights.
Right.
It keeps the channel going. But it's geared up. We're also taking that money towards the fraternal organization to host events. It covers lawyer fees. It covers an assortment of costs. So it's not just for keeping the show going. It's also for real world stuff that we're going to be able to do once this virus is over for events.
Yeah, we've created the virtual community, and now we're going to take that offline. That's the goal.
So if you guys like this kind of content, what we're about to get into, what we've done before on the show, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Helps us out. It grows the channel. And the more we grow the channel, the more people we can help and then bring in future mentors as well.
That's what it's all about. It's getting the message out.
So now I really want to do a video specifically on the core values of the organization. We were kind of torn between this video we're doing tonight with emotional mastery and doing those in the future. So you kind of got bumped.
Maybe I think it was kind of a tie. I mean, that is
it kind of was.
That's going to be a great topic.
It is.
And here's the reason why is like, even if it's not just necessarily like, oh, you should be a part of this thing that we're doing. And here's why, here's what's valuable about it. I mean, it is that, but also here's what you should look for out of your peers and guys that you're associating yourself with. And why that's beneficial to you. So not just selling you on the community aspect of what we're trying to do, but in general, this is the kind of stuff like find a community of guys that are accountable to each other. That's just I don't want to preempt the content, but a little sneak peek of concepts like that.
So I'm just kind of going through Red Pill School's thing right here. So he's been in communication with the admins. They were going to ban the subreddit at one point, and then they kind of backed off. And they've just gone full goofball. They're ban happy. They banned the Donald. It's just they're going full bore with censorship. And I think a big part of that's because now China is there's that money. They want to make sure that they're kind of at their beck and call, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I hate to like just throw the political grenade out there because I know that this will get Joe riled up, but in reality it is in the run up to the election.
Oh, absolutely.
They're under pressure from a lot of, people with eyeballs on their platform to say, hey, we want to make sure that you're, not just kind of fomenting this stuff that's seen as either hate speech or whatever it's going to be weaponized toward, groups of people. And it's just a shame that people, don't really appreciate the free expression of ideas anymore.
Yep. And a lot of it's also just because money. They want the advertisers, so they're trying to make it more
100%
admin or user friendly, I guess.
That's not to discount your point at all. It's 100% about that.
It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So moving on here, we got Tesla. Oh boy, it was a bad week for Tesla. So for those that missed it, I posted this the day before it happened. I called it, and no one ever listens to me, but damn it, I called it. And I just wish I would have listened to my own advice. I jumped in a little bit too soon. I think tomorrow will be a better day. And for those that can't see this at home, let me go ahead and maximize this for a second. Mm-hmm. This part right here is just showing that it pulled back about 34% from its peak. And it's actually down after hours another 3% or so. So it just crossed over my threshold of a 35% pullback to put a third of my my bucket, as Phil Town and Warren Buffett would say, into the market. So the bucket is just your cash that you've got on hand in reserve for when the market pulls back. So when it's raining gold, you go out with a bucket, not a thimble. So last year I did a little bit differently. And the idea was every 25% or every 10% the market pulled back, I would put a quarter of my bucket into the market. This time I'm being a little bit more patient because I'm expecting a bigger pullback. And we just saw it happen with Tesla. So, and if you go down to the link below in the description, I think it's the last link actually. It goes to Imgur. It's like Joe's market pullback prediction, and you'll see the four different images, the key ones. So there's pullback number 2 and pullback number 3. I expect us to see somewhere between a 35 or 37% to a 50 to 55% pullback. That window is what I'm expecting. In Tesla's case, they were so overvalued to begin with. When they went to the moon like that, they track to this image right here perfectly. This shows the market cycle over here on the right. So much overlap. So I was expecting more of a pullback and then a bounce, what they call a bull trap. I think we're going to see it tomorrow. So I've got my order in for tomorrow morning. I'll buy. I'll probably sell tomorrow afternoon when it bounces up. Make a quick little swing profit on it. That's my goal for tomorrow, just with Tesla. But the market in general, at least it hasn't pulled back entirely. Tech absolutely has. There's a lot of people panicking right now thinking, oh my God, it's 2000 all over again. We're having the market bubble burst. Not necessarily. There's a lot of room to go in tech still. It's all the fundamentals are still good, but where it wasn't in 2000.
Yeah, it depends on the spaces that you're in. I mean, like cybersecurity continues to be like really super hot.
Yeah. So Amazon just had a great quarter because of all the buying people doing online because stores were closed a couple months ago.
Yep.
So yeah, you're going to see a lot of good stuff. Just right now, it's just a market correction. The world's not on fire.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of friction and shifting right now. Well,
we're going to get into that. Yeah.
The world's not on fire, but the world kind of is on fire. It's kind of a good segue. But as an aside, I do love the technical analysis, and I think if I had more time to invest myself in spending, I'm talking about actual time to do my research and go through my portfolio. Like I would do it, right? I would actually dive into this stuff, but it's so valuable to actually learn kind of the basics of how to spot, trend lines and support and resistance and things like that. So if you're going to get into it, like absolutely, Joe's a great guy to learn from in terms of the finance content for sure.
And just so you know, this is not advice. This is educational, entertainment purposes only. I had to learn all this the hard way. I had my ups, I had my downs, and then I started kicking ass. And I kicked ass in 2019, and I did in 2020. And I'm still up a ridiculous amount right now, even with the market pullback, because I took profit the day I posted that, and people didn't listen. And if you did, great, good for you. But anyways, I digress. So
the point to be taken as an individual investor's opinion, right?
Yes. So the bullet points right here is when the market as a whole pulls back 35%, then dump a third of my bucket in, versus the 10% pullbacks doing a quarter. That would allow me to capitalize on a 40% pullback. This strategy will allow me to to capitalize on up to a 60% pullback while still getting the most of my money in when I think we hit the bottom around that 50 to 55% pullback. That's what I see happening. Now, I don't think it's going to occur until probably closer to the election or after the election. It really depends on who wins and monetary policy coming out of the Fed. There's some crazy shit going on with that right now. They just changed. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah, there's going to be so many X factors between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, a whole lot of stuff can change. So getting back to our little recap. Candace Owens and Cardi B. Holy crap, that was funny as hell.
I'm clueless as to this. You're going to have to explain it to me.
So do you know who Cardi B is first?
I do know who Cardi B is, yeah.
Okay, well, so she did an interview with Joe Biden. Why they did this, I don't know.
Oh, she's like aspiring to do more beyond just being a musician. And
well, because she entered the political spectrum, it now opens her up to political critique.
Musician?
Well, Candace Owens was on the Ben Shapiro show, and she called her out on it. And she made a good point, because what she did with Biden was what Candace Owens drew up a clip, and they showed it. And Malcolm X, he said, beware these rich liberals in Hollywood who are going to pull people out, and they're going to use them for trying to swing votes. We saw the same thing happen back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton goes on a show. She's like, oh, yeah, I always keep hot sauce in my purse. He's like, no, you don't. Somebody told her that, tell her to say that. Most likely.
What show was this on that Hillary said she's got?
She actually did this, and it's on camera. You can go look it up.
Oh, this is incredible.
After we're done with the show.
Keep going. I'm going to look this up right now while we're talking.
But yeah, so she does this, and so Cardi B, and she does this interview with Biden. Candace Owens points out that what she did is exactly what Malcolm X had warned about. And they got in this big Twitter spat, and then Cardi B wouldn't even go on camera because she doesn't have her 8 pounds of makeup on. She is not attractive. She's got nice boobs, but she's no.
Wait, which one?
Cardi B. If you find pictures of her without makeup on, you would not know it's actually her.
I believe
apples and oranges. Doesn't even look like her.
Yeah, I mean, every photo she probably takes is airbrush and all that, and I can't blame her. That's her career, right?
Right. So she actually held a towel up over her head or over the camera, somewhere between, and she was talking through the towel to the camera on Instagram. So yeah, okay, fine. You got an image to uphold. I get that. It's show business.
Yeah, it is show business.
But they went back and forth, and then Cardi B is not up to speed when it comes to politics the way Candace Owens is. And it was like an NFL all-pro fullback running over a peewee lineman. It was not even funny.
Yeah, here's the problem, right? Is when folks like that are out of their depth, clearly they're trying to get into a topic, right? There's room for people who aren't complete experts on the subject, but you got to demonstrate, you got to demonstrate a little bit, in my opinion, of that kind of journalistic humility of, look, I'm out to search for the right answers here. I'm not professing my own expertise. So that's one piece of it. And most of these celebrities just don't have that. They think they're an authority simply because they have opinions like everybody else. And that's challenging, man.
It was. Here's what really got me about that, though. It was she starts talking about how she's a millionaire. She pays her taxes. And she's saying that I think taxes should be this X, Y, and Z way. And Candace Owens is like, you're an idiot. That already happens. She's talking about, I think we should use more money for public schools and not for police. I'm like, who do you think pays for public schools?
Yeah.
That's your tax dollars at work already. So she didn't. I don't think she knew that.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Okay. Well, she's not, let's be honest. She's not the only uninformed person out there, right? But,
that is true.
There's no such thing as honest civic discourse anymore. But
that's actually a good segue to the next point.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House. She is 2 heartbeats away from the presidency. She is 3rd in line in the order of succession. Okay, go back to your high school civics.
She's also 1 foot in the grave.
That is true. But so if anything happens to Trump,
and Pence,
Pence takes over. If anything happens to Pence, Pelosi takes over. She's 2 heartbeats away from the nuclear football. And this is the woman who said she got duped by a salon. And for not using rules that she herself helped create. So for those that don't know, she went and got her hair done at a salon and just said, screw it. I don't need to wear a mask. I guess some animals are more equal than others. Who knows? And they got it on video. The woman that owned the salon, she's like, what the hell? All these other people are closed. They're out of business. They're not working. We have all these rules we have to follow. Who does she think she is that the rules don't apply to her?
Yeah.
So they put the video up online and called her out on it, and all hell broke loose. And justifiably so. So, and then...
It's the whole concept of rules for thee, not for me.
Exactly. And going on to the next point, San Francisco, the San Fran Gym Bro. I like that. So these government...
I'm not going to lie. That was a good pun.
So these government agencies, they have gyms built into their facilities. Guess what? All of these gyms in the San Francisco area had to stay shut. Where I'm at, they were shut until just recently. Mm-hmm. All these people that want to go work out, they have all this free time, all this energy to burn. They can't go to the gym. Well, guess what? These gyms inside these government buildings said, don't worry about it. They all stayed open. Somebody finally broke the news about that, and like the double standard again. Mm-hmm. Rules for thee, not for me. So justifiably, people are upset about it, and it's just, what are they thinking? I just don't get how they thought they would get away with this stuff. And then lastly, like that. How's the weather, Ollie? It's on fire.
Yeah,
it's California is burning again. This one I found out today. It was because of a gender reveal party. It had some sort of explosive device, aka fireworks, and wouldn't you know it, half the state's on fire again.
And
this is
Western Oregon and Washington State, I believe, right?
What cracks me up though is this is the second time a gender reveal party torched California.
So it's absolutely insane that the amount. I read up on this actually, so I came prepared for this segment. The interesting thing about the California wildfires is they already broke the record of acreage in terms of what's burned and the size of property that's burned. So the amount of land that's burned is in September, right? And their fire season goes into October and November in California. But the amount of property that's actually burned has already broken the record, and there's 2.5 months left to go in the fire season in California.
What I find interesting is you would have thought they would have learned their lesson last time. So for those that don't remember, PG&E, their stock cratered, went from like around $50 down to around $5. And I made a nice swing trade on that because of their foolishness. But what ended up happening was California, it was a state law, prevented logging because it was an animal habitat.
Yep.
So they were not allowed to go in, clear out the brush that was getting overgrown, and that created
not just commercial logging, actually clearing the brush out.
Yeah, and this is just normal best practices. Mm-hmm. One of the lines sparked off a fire or something like that, and then next thing you know, half the state's on fire again.
Well, it's forestry management. This is basic forestry management and fire risk management.
And they're not allowed to do it.
And I say this having been a volunteer firefighter for 4 years, way back in the day. But when we were, my wife and I were actually in California last year during the harvest in wine country, and they told us about all the challenges that they've had with the local governments and municipalities passing laws to prevent proper forestry management because it's an environmental habitat for either the flora or the fauna, whatever it is, but they're making it very difficult for people to actually manage these plots properly. And look, it's going to cost a lot of lives. It's going to cost a lot of lives and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of economic damage in terms of careers lost, businesses lost, people's income, people's homes, people's farmland, people's livestock, all that.
Because these I think in this one it was an owl habitat was what started it. Don't quote me on that, but Thomas Sowell has a really good quote on this. To paraphrase, we've replaced what worked for the last 30 years with what sounded good. Mm-hmm. And that kind of describes a lot of the policy we're seeing, particularly in California and somewhat in New York, but that's a whole nother debate right there.
It doesn't make sense to me. If you're setting up a piece of land exposing it to fire risk and it catches on fire, then what's the environmental preservation there?
Right.
That's what I don't understand is
It's first order thinking.
If it's an animal habitat, like these animals are going to get run out of that if it catches on fire.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just, and again, I'm not a wildlife expert, right? Like I clearly there are opinions on both sides, but you got to apply some common sense here.
Well, if common sense was so common, we wouldn't be having a lot of these issues.
That's true.
So, anyways,
we wouldn't have this channel. But
that is true.
We digress.
I see you there, Deads. All right. So moving on. Emotional. Right there. Emotional mastery. That's the kind of theme for tonight.
Ooh, this is a good one.
So, this comes straight out of the Mark Manson Your Feelings article. Link is in the description.
Mm-hmm.
The key takeaways here, the problem with organizing your life around feelings. Who do we know does that? Well, your feelings are self-contained, which means they only really apply to you and your outward, your little bubble of life.
Mm-hmm.
Your feelings are, again, temporary and inaccurate. Your perception of reality doesn't necessarily mean that's what's really happening out in the world. It's a really good article. I highly recommend you read it. I don't want to kind of belabor this point because there's more we're going to get into in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
So control meaning, not emotions. So feelings, for those that are on the podcast, feelings don't necessarily mean anything. They merely mean whatever you allow them to mean.
Mm-hmm.
How you respond determines the reality and the impact whatever it is that's generating those feelings will have on you. And he quotes, to quote him, is sometimes good things will make you feel bad. Sometimes bad things will make you feel good. That doesn't change the fact that they are good or bad. All right.
The problem is for a lot of people, it does.
They allow their feelings to control them.
Yeah. And so this goes back to Stoicism 101. The way I like to describe this emotional mastery kind of concept is this is emotional jujitsu for complete retards who have no idea how to manage their emotions. And I count myself among those people, right? Like in terms of, it's been a lot of work for me to understand how to actually manage my emotions. And not everybody gets this kind of exposure to these concepts and understands how to manage this stuff. So, for guys that have not gone through like cognitive behavioral therapy or what have you, it's hard to not feel like your emotions are your absolute reality. But when you actually go back and reflect on them and have some perspective, we've talked about perspective a lot in past streams, right? When you go back and have some perspective on, I really felt like this, and I didn't necessarily, I wasn't justified in feeling that, right? I was upset about this thing, and 3 weeks later, I look back and I say, I shouldn't have been so upset about that, right? So that feeling of perspective, if you're just getting started with this, your feelings mean a lot, right? Your feelings mean a lot when you haven't been exposed to these ideas. And one of the things that I've seen passed around the Discord lately in the community is, in terms of recommendations on how to get started with Stoicism, the first thing you can do, besides reading up on Stoicism, is start journaling, right? And start organizing your thoughts and your feelings around, sometimes good things will make you feel bad. What we're talking about is values and beliefs versus what you're feeling in a given moment. And if you can start to do that introspection and journal and keep that up and get that perspective, you're going to start to be able to get to where Joe is talking about controlling meaning and not emotions here.
Yeah. One of our own members on our Discord community, he was asking about this. How does he can help control and how does he kind of navigate this and have some more intentionality behind his decision-making? Slow things down. My recommendation for him is something that I learned from somebody else, and I cannot remember who it was that I got this from. But throughout the day, keep a log, keep a journal, and write down every decision you make. Mm-hmm. Think about why you made this decision, and then try and, left or right. Why did I go left? Why did I go right? Keep a log of all this, and then review it at the end of the day. What you're going to find is that you're going to realize, like, what the hell was I thinking in some of those cases? And in other examples, the very fact of journaling what you're doing will slow down the decision-making process and allow you to make more emotionally sound decisions. You're going to be more analytical in your approach in that way. Just by slowing things down. Okay, do I go pizza or wings?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know pizza's bad for me, and I can at least get the wings boneless. So maybe I'll go that direction. And you've already made a better choice for your health in that context, just because you stopped and asked yourself, why am I making these decisions?
Yeah, that's a simple example, but you could look at any question on Ask TRP, right? These questions that we get all the time of, my girlfriend did X, should I do Y or Z? Or my friend did X, should I do Y or Z? Look, if you are the type of person that has been journaling for a few months and understanding what it is that you want in your life and all the things we've talked about if you know your mission, if you really understand what's best for you, right? And you're your own judge and you say, look, I may be upset about this thing, but that doesn't track to my values. So I need to dismiss the fact that I'm upset. Or I am upset about this thing and that's in line with my values. I'm upset because this goes against my values and I don't want this in my life.
Oh, you're getting ahead of us here.
Yeah, I don't want to preempt too much of that, but
no,
these are the kind of things that Joe's talking about to be able to get context and perspective about the way that you think and feel. And a great way to do that is journaling.
Yep. And if you are going to journal, at a minimum, do it for 30 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And getting right back to what Mike was saying a moment ago. So emotions are okay as long as you express them with outcome independence, without neediness, nor seeking validation or comfort. And here's the key point, and only in accordance with your desires, values, and your mission and purpose. Mm-hmm. This is right out of the link down below. This is Expressing Your Emotions Like a Man by Man in the World. Yep.
I love his stuff.
Let's see here. So this is one of the ones I've added to this as well. So part of emotional mastery is why. Well, when it comes to dating and relationships, you've got to understand women tend to mirror men's emotional states. The vibe that you give off, women are going to pick up on that. They're very, very attuned to what you're sub-communicating, even though you may not realize what you're sub-communicating. That's a key distinction.
We've said this a lot of times, like 75% of communication is not the words.
Yeah. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the majority of our communications aren't even verbal. It's nonverbal. Mm-hmm. So if you got nervous energy, closed off body language, if you're visibly disturbed emotionally, something's got you upset or whatever, then they're going to start mirroring what you're giving off. So if,
almost doesn't matter what you say at that point.
Right. And for the podcast listeners, if you are nervous and awkward, then you're going to make her feel nervous and awkward. The key phrasing there is make her feel. Mm-hmm. You can use what you're projecting to create emotional states in other people, particularly women in this context. So you can create the roller coaster of feels by taking control of your own emotions and feelings and being the emotional leader. You can project out the energies you want them to themselves have.
Yeah, we're talking about influencing and inspiring strong emotions in other people.
Yep.
Right. And if you don't think that's realistic or you think that's manipulative, there's two different ways to look at this, right? We've talked about some of the dark triad stuff and literally manipulating people. Well, let's just imagine for a moment that there's a fire and you're scared to death. You yell, you start running. That's going to inspire a lot of strong feelings in the people around you. It just will. Like by nature, that's going to inspire strong feelings. So if you don't think it's realistic that you can influence and inspire strong feelings in people without literally trying to manipulate them, trust me, you can. It's totally possible. And this is what we're talking about, is understanding your emotional state, what's best for you, and projecting that outward in a way that kind of gears toward the more attractive strategy piece of all the things that we've talked about in the other RPU episodes that I'm not going to belabor here, but understanding that strong frame, that confidence, that emotional stability, if you're broadcasting that, women pick up on that. That's what Joe's referring to here.
Yeah, and if you ever think of it like a work environment where somebody has an argument and it gets to that point where you're not even sure if they're going to start throwing, it's going to be like a fist fight. They're really just heated argument. You're going to notice that everybody's anxiety level is going to shoot up dramatically.
The tension goes up, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you got right there's an example of how you can use emotion to what you're projecting out, how others are going to receive it, and it's going to affect their own emotional state. So you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. We've always talked about before, game is amoral. It's not good, it's not bad, it's what you do with it that matters. It's a tool in the toolbox.
It's what works and what doesn't is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Whatever you want is you fill in the algebra equation of what you want, and we'll tell you what we've heard from other guys that works and what we've experienced that works.
Yep. So again, you can create the roller coaster of feels by leading. You must be in control of your own emotions and feelings for that leadership to actually take place. So in that respect, when you're going out to bars, clubs, nightlife, socializing, I recommend sticking to a 2-drink limit and don't do drugs. Anything's going to change your perception or your social savvy. You got to keep your wits about you. Mm-hmm. You just have to. If you get sloppy drunk or you're high as a kite, your ability to lead in this kind of context goes right out the window.
Yeah, I'd say that's true for everybody except the people who have just internalized this at a very deep level and are completely congruent with who they are. And even if they're under the influence, it's not a problem for them. That's not most of us guys. It's really not. Like if you're wondering if I'm that kind of person of like, oh, I can probably bend this rule. If you're curious and there's any doubt in your mind, no, that you're not that guy. You're not that guy. So just don't do it.
Yep.
Right.
And there are guys out there that are just the life of the party. No matter what they do, everybody just kind of like wants to go along with them for whatever reason, because they're giving out that fun party energy that everybody wants to be a part of. Mm-hmm. High charisma dudes that have that, they can get away with a little bit more than the average Joe.
These are not the guys watching this stream. Like, let's be clear. Like, they don't need this advice. Like, they're not. And even if they heard this advice, they'd be like, that's fine. 2-drink limit. Don't worry about that. I'm fine. Right. So we're not talking to them. We're talking about every Joe Schmo, you know, like me. And I'm not gonna speak for Joe, but me, I'm not gonna get sloppy when I'm out.
Yeah. Some people actually do get into a more fun vibe when they kind of had the inhibitions let go through the liquid courage. But again, you're probably not as calibrated as you think you would be.
Oh, so, yeah. You never have a handle on. Yep. You never are as cool as you think you are.
Yeah. And now we're coming down to becoming the emotional leader. And I mentioned this word before, intentionality. So
it's a great word.
Yep. So when it's called for, it's okay to become the fun guy or the party guy or the stoic guy or whatever. It's going to be context sensitive. And as long as you've got that social savvy developed, again, competence breeds confidence. If you've gone out and you've done the work, you're going to start getting these ideas of what's socially acceptable and what's called for in the right kind of circumstance.
Yeah. The other thing here, when you talk about intentionality, the other thing here is understand why you're doing something. Like, understand your own motivations, right? If you're out and, like Joe said, there's going to be a potential situation where 2 people are about to get into a fight. If you want to be the stoic guy and say, guys, like, and say, just guys, chill, right? If you want to de-escalate that situation, then it makes sense for you to be the stoic guy in that situation. But just choose what you're going to do.
Yep.
That's the intentionality piece.
And right there in the second bullet too. So long as you're leading things with an eye on fulfilling your goals, desires, values, and mission.
All of that should be congruent for sure.
Yeah. So if whatever you're doing is just you're doing it because you think you're playing a role, trying to get laid or whatever it might be, if it's not congruent, like Mike was just saying, you're going about it the wrong way. And here's the thing, incongruencies themselves are going to be perceived. People are going to read when you're being fake, whether you realize it or not. You can only fake shit for so long before people wise up.
People's they might not recognize it consciously, but people's intuition just starts to question, like, is this guy serious? Is this guy really who he says he is or purports to be? So,
and women in general have developed a very keen sense on this. This is part of why they test us.
They've been socialized to do that, right? Their radar is super calibrated, much more calibrated than ours is.
I mean, we call shit tests congruent tests for a reason. They're synonymous. All right. So I think we've kind of belabored this one. We're good.
In a good way. We've
in a good, yeah.
Yeah.
If there's any comments, questions, please hit us up right now. We're getting into the home stretch here. And speaking of, bro tip number 6.
Pew, pew, pew.
So we posted this a long time ago. You either get bitter or you get better. It's that simple. You either take what has been dealt to you and allow it to make you a better person, or you allow it to tear you down. The choice does not belong to fate. It belongs to you. And I threw some notes on here. So you either get bitter or you get better. And I've talked about this a bunch of times on the show. Improve what you can and minimize what you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody gets to be an astronaut. Life isn't fair. Accept it and move on. Whining about it isn't going to change it. So, but getting back to what we talked about earlier in the show, we can't change what happens to us, but we do have control over how we react to it. So again, getting back to the decision-making process, thinking with intentionality, it kind of rolls it all together. So the main thing is just accept yourself for who you are, improve what you can, but don't get bent out of shape if something's not going your way, because you can't fix it anyways in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've come to the end of the slide deck. Do you have any other comments, questions, or concerns?
Yeah, no, not concerns, but definitely comments. So you hit on the power of choice. There's a book that got recommended to me. I think it's called The Power of Choice, but I'll have to go back and check that. But if viewers are curious about it, they can actually check the description or post in the Discord, and I'll find out what it is and recommend it to them. But it's kind of a practical guide to conscious decision making, which is the intentionality piece that Joe talked about. There's a really great bit of reading there. The other piece that I'd recommend people take a look at is Rollo's post on surrender. And we didn't talk about this. It wasn't a slide, but I think this bears like a whole section of us talking about, especially because we're light on questions. Wojo and Rollo both wrote about not getting emotionally invested in a woman or in a relationship, because you're just subjecting yourself to a lot of damage, right?
Well, now down below in the description, we actually have Wujo's interview with us.
That's right.
And we did talk to him about that. And I was going to include in the slideshow. I just honestly ran out of time. Yep. Part of it was I forgot to look at that screen. So, yeah, it was that and just a combination of running out of time, doing the pre-show, and a couple of other factors. But if you want to learn more about what Wujo is talking about, what Mike was talking about in that context, go watch the interview. Links down in the description. And in his video interview, there's a description in the link in that description has the link to his article, his Reddit thread that lays all this out.
It's a great thread. And then go read also Rollo Tomasi's article on surrender, which is it talks about emotional vulnerability and things like that. And it's the work is aces, right? And I realize this is a little bit of a controversial kind of topic about men being vulnerable, because I think there are some opinions, especially on Married Red Pill, about vulnerability being its own form of power. And to be honest, I kind of fall into that camp of, if you're outcome independent, it kind of can be powerful to be vulnerable at times. But ultimately, you gotta at least be cognizant of your level of emotional investment, your level of vulnerability that you're putting out there. And if you're not, you're in for a bad time. You're in for a really bad time. Yeah. So step one is, this is all kind of conjecture and theory to some degree, right? But for the average guy watching this stream, like, go read this stuff and do a little bit of thinking about how emotionally invested you've been, not only in your relationships with women, but all of your relationships, and what kind of liability that tends to expose you to.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the way Mark Manson frames it in, I just won't blank on the name of his book, the Models. Yep. Vulnerability, the way he puts it, it's an interesting reframe of the concept. And I see we got comments over in Discord.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to look at the vulnerability thing, and I didn't want to get down a rabbit hole here, but it is worth touching on, because there's opposing views, and I think what it comes down to is how it works for your frame. Right. If it works for your frame to be vulnerable and you've got enough other things going for you, that's not going to set you back, like, more power to you. Right. And there's certain things that are going to create vulnerabilities in any guy. Right. Like, if your kid dies of cancer, I'm sorry, like, you're going to struggle with that. And that's understandable. But ultimately, you should understand kind of all of the things that we're talking about from an emotional management, stability, kind of mastery standpoint. The topic tonight really comes down to the quote from The Matrix that I love so much to go back to, is know yourself. Is really what it comes down to. Know yourself, and what works for me is not going to work for Joe. Is not going to work for you watching this. So take all of this advice with a grain of salt and do that work to figure out exactly what that looks like for you to have that frame strength.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee is, adapt what is useless or useful, reject what is useless, and add what is uniquely your own.
Yep.
And looking over here to the comments, actually, kind of we're going to thread jack a little bit here.
Let's do it.
Alpha. So he's just begun journaling 2 days ago. He would like to know, should he keep it freestyle and jot down whatever he feels like, or is there something specific he should be taking care of while writing a journal? The goal is to be aware of his emotions and how he's acting upon them. Actually, he's asking, is the goal to be aware of his emotions and how to act upon them?
Okay, so there's 2 ways to look at this. And if you want good examples, go to every Tuesday on Married Red Pill, the On Your Shit threads, and guys will post, with varying degrees of efficacy about whatever they got going on in their lives and where they're at on their journey of self-development, self-actualization, and really, once they get beyond that, is just getting what they want. And so if you want good examples, go there, but it usually falls into 2 schools of thought, which is, number one is like guys that are really fixing their stuff. Like they know things are wrong. They're fixing things that are wrong. And this tracks to AFOK's, I think it's Mindful Action Plan.
It's changed several times.
Yeah, it's changed, but as of right now, it's Mindful Action Plan. It's the map concept, right? Like put together your map, take an inventory of every area of your life and figure out where you're at. Your finances, how are they? Your career, how is that? Your physical fitness, your health, how is that? Your relationships with your friends, your relationships with your romantic relationships, your sex life, all of those things. You take a full inventory of every aspect of your life, and then you put together a lot of SMART goals. We've talked about mission. We talked about goals a lot on the stream. You put that together and you figure out, how does this track to that? And the journaling in that one school of thought of I'm fixing things that need to be fixed, that is the grind of like, here's what I tried out. It comes down to, for younger guys that don't have a wife or girlfriend, it comes down to the homework that we assign. Like I tried approaching, right? Like I talked to 5 women this week, and this is how it went, and this is how I feel about it, right? And that kind of, I'm progressing toward a goal and I'm getting frustrated with it, or I'm not getting frustrated with it. I'm having some success. I'm feeling good about it. And how am I seeking validation? How am I getting through that? That is one school of thought, and how to kind of troubleshoot your stuff. The other school of thought, the other approach from a journaling standpoint, is very much the Marcus Aurelius, like going to the echo chamber. There's a great post about the echo chamber on Married Red Pill by Red SFP Plus. You should go read that. Absolutely. And it's this introspective place about, these are just my thoughts running with no resistance. And I'm putting my thoughts out there for myself, and I'm going to go back and look at them over a period of time, a couple of days, couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, maybe a year or 2 later. And I'm going to give myself that perspective that we talked about, because the temporal piece of, I'm not the person I was yesterday or last week. And if I go back and look at what I did a week ago, I'm going to have a different reaction to it now, or a different perspective on it now, given what I've experienced. So those are the 2 schools of thought. Is number 1, fixing your stuff, troubleshooting your daily grind. And number 2 is getting in the echo chamber, doing the self-introspection, letting your feelings and thoughts flow, and writing that stuff down just to know that it's just for you and going back to it.
All right. Let's see. Sam Wall had a question. Is becoming the life of the party a bad thing to want to do? What makes the people the life of the party? High energy, charisma, being able to take that leadership role and be comfortable with that kind of the spotlight on them, and being able to lead people and give them fun vibes. That's the gist of it. Whenever you look at like very high charisma people in party environments, one of my best friends, great wing, he was always the one going out doing the approach. And I've talked about those stories before in previous episodes where, he lined him up, I knocked him down. He was the approacher. I was the guy that did the comfort, and Wonder Twin Powers activate. We did it good. It was an awesome setup. He was the life of the party. He could do that. He could turn it on in an instant and be Mr. Fun Party Guy. Mm-hmm. It's something that you can develop that. I did that for a while whenever I was going out all the time. You just kind of get into a habit of being a little bit more upbeat, higher energy. And if you remember like what they talked about with the pickup guys way back, like 10, 12 years ago, maybe even longer. Yeah, it was before that actually. When you quote unquote open a set, you want to be slightly higher energy than the group is that you're talking to. Why? Because if you come in at a lower energy, you're Mr. Stoic, you're Mr. Bored, you're boring, is what it is. So they're going to, again, mirror your energy. If you're coming in lower energy than them, you're bringing down their vibe. You don't want to do that. So you want to kind of pump it up a little bit, be a little bit more energetic and be a little bit more upbeat. Now, it doesn't mean going Mach 5, balls to the wall, crazy man, but you got to kind of bump up your energy just a little bit. And sometimes I kind of get into the doldrums here on the show sometimes too. So you got to remind yourself to amp it up a little bit, have a little bit of fun.
Doldrums? What do you mean?
Give yourself permission to have fun. I've talked about that before. So if we just kind of get into a really heavy topic and it kind of brings everybody down,
I got you.
You got to stay upbeat to kind of keep things moving a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's not just in this kind of environment. It's
nobody wants to be around. Nobody wants to be around negative people. They don't.
Don't be a buzzkill.
I'm talking about. I'm not saying like people. Everybody's negative to a certain extent from time to time. The people that are optimistic all the time are, in my opinion, quite literally insane. People that just the world could be on fire, things could be going completely wrong, and they're super happy all the time. I don't know how you go through life like that, but
good meds apparently.
But yeah, right. I don't know what you're on, but I want some of it. Like, please share that with me. If you could bottle that and give it to me, I would love that. But the reality is like everybody is negative to a certain degree from time to time, and you have to recognize that nobody wants to be around a person that's like that often or like that all the time. It's not the snarky kind of I'm better than everybody else, but it's just kind of me trying to protect my ego, or I have these beliefs and I'm preachy about it, and so I'm going to inform everybody else so I can feel better about my sense of self. Again, it goes back to ego protection. Or it's just hey, things are bad and I'm going to complain about it, and I feel like I'm a victim and I have no control over anything, and I'm just going to be negative all the time. Nobody wants to be around any of those people for an extended period of time. That's not the kind of quality people that people want in their lives.
Yeah,
generally speaking.
Before I address the line here for 1 second, I want to thank everybody that has gone through and signed up via Patreon and has joined the community. We are approaching the big 5-0. So that's almost 50 people worldwide coming together for a common cause.
It's Joe's 50th birthday, guys.
Oh, hell no. I got a ways for that.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's awesome that we the ball's rolling a little bit. I can't wait for us to start doing these live events.
That is something for sure.
It's gonna be awesome.
50 on the Patreon, and how many do we have on the server now?
I can tell you right now, 400 and something.
That's a lot.
428, including the 2 or 3 bots. So it's 425.
That's huge.
Yeah. Let's see here. The Lion. I'm really good at justifying my choices using TRP principles. That fits the easy choice versus the difficult choice. Are my emotions to blame, or is it my frame? For example, I can justify paying the dinner for a date by wanting to show I can provide. Or I can justify letting her pay for me by saying that it increases her investment in me. Are my emotions controlling me? I can't really figure out the true right decision. I'm using my emotions to validate my justification. That right there is the key. He's using his emotions to validate the justification. This goes right back to the slides. This is fuck your feelings, dude.
Yeah.
Be more. Yeah. So you got to decide for yourself, which one do you want to give off? Do you want to be Mr. Beta Provider, paying for the meals, paying for the dates, paying for this, paying for that? Or do you want to get some reciprocity and build mutual investment? Let her pay for, if you're going to go, classic example, you're going to go to the movies. One of you might pay for the tickets. The other can pay for the session, pay for the concessions, the popcorn and drinks.
Yep.
That's a good reciprocity, and you're kind of your teamwork. You're splitting it up. Going on a date in that kind of context where money's being spent should ideally be roughly mutually beneficial. Should be relatively even and egalitarian in the sense. That doesn't mean that you're going to let her pay for dinner right out the gate. That can rub people the wrong way. Ideally, you're going on dates that don't have a fiscal cost. Get away from dinner and drinks. Get away from having to go on dates that you're going to be spending a lot of money. The best kind of dates you can go on are going to be dirt cheap or free and some kind of activity.
Yeah, so, a cup of coffee's $5, guys. Come on.
Yeah, Tom Leykis way back had this big thing about never paying more than $40 per date.
I mean, $40, honestly.
That's a lot of money.
Go to Chipotle.
Yeah,
we talked about that on the after show last week. Like, go to Chipotle. It's $15.
Yeah. So it's it's crazy that $40 15 years ago was a lot more than it is today.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, it's just interesting to me how things have kind of changed as well culturally.
Women are an expensive habit. I'll tell you that from experience.
Yes.
Don't let them make it an expensive habit.
Yeah, and that's another thing right there. As soon as you set that, establish that
precedent.
The precedent. Guess what? Now you've set the bar. You've got to go there every time. It's a pain in the ass. Don't do that. So as long as you don't set the precedent of being Mr. Moneybags beta provider,
I mean,
you ain't got to worry about that.
Yeah. Here's the thing: is there's a couple of metrics here because I wanted to hit on a few points on the Lion's comment, which is such a fantastic question and a well-composed question that goes to a lot of things that we're talking about. He asks, are my emotions to blame or is it just my frame? Well, if you go back to the frame episode, emotions are part of frame, pal. So I think you need to probably shore up that piece of your frame. What I would suggest here, because your questions kind of imply that you are almost approaching the question in terms of what is the result going to be. You are concerned about perception and how this is going to land or how this is going to be seen.
Outcome dependence.
Yeah, you are dependent on the outcome. Is like, hey, for example, if I pay for dinner for a date because I want to show that I can provide, is she going to be receptive to that? Is she going to recognize that? Is she going to be attracted to that? You're already asking those 3-4 questions that you are dependent on the outcome. That's a little bit past having a preference, and that's the distinction we've made here. So what I would suggest for you in particular, aligned with this question, is if you are uncertain of you're going to do a particular thing, is this out? A lot of guys have these questions of, is this alpha or is this beta? It doesn't matter if it's alpha or beta. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. Do I want something back in return? Am I setting myself up for a covert contract here? Because if you are doing something and expecting a certain result, for example, if you're paying for dinner and saying, I'm really hoping and expecting that she's going to be attracted to this because I want her to know that I'm a provider, right? Which is, I mean, it's Beta Bucks game, but it's also bad Beta Bucks game, right?
Yeah.
So the other example you gave is, or can I justify letting her pay for me by saying that it increases her investment in me? What do you want? Do you want her to pay for dinner? Do you want to pay for dinner? What do you want to do? And as long as you are doing that without any expectations and you know why you're doing it, then that's the right choice for you. And it doesn't matter what she's going to do.
It goes back to what we said before. Make sure that whatever you're doing is congruent to your goals, mission, and purpose.
Bingo. So ask yourself that question. That's my advice. Do I want something back in return? And if the answer is yes, then probably reevaluate the decision.
Yeah. I think the last thing was, you know what? No, we'll cut it there. That I think that's pretty legit. Mm-hmm. The only other thing I can add to this, as far as 2 cents, is that the vibe that you're throwing out there in terms of what the Lion is saying, you're giving girls the boyfriend experience. The kind of experience you're giving them is what you're going to get in reciprocity, in response. So if you're giving them the Chad kind of experience, you're going to get the Chad response. You're giving them the boyfriend kind of dates. We're going to go on a thing. We're going to do this. We're going to do that.
It's so tough.
You're going to get the standard boilerplate girlfriend response. We're going to go date for 3 times. Then we might have sex. We might not. Maybe we'll fizzle out before then. If you don't go on the boyfriend experience kind of dates, you're going to have a different kind of experience with her. All right. We talked about this before as well, where women kind of put men in different buckets, depending on what vibe the guy is kind of throwing out there, sub-communicating what they want.
Is this guy throwing out husband potential, or is this guy throwing out like tie me to the headboard potential? Yeah.
And by his own admission, he's giving out the boyfriend signals.
Yeah.
So he's going to get, that kind of, if she's not interested in the boyfriend right now, you're not going to be compatible in that sense.
Dude, if you're worrying about whether or not you're going to pay for dinner, she's not worrying about whether or not she's going to pull you into the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not happening. So
yeah, you're not the guy she's going to hook up with in the phone party, if that's what you're giving off.
Now. That's the challenge, right? It's like so many, and I don't blame him for this question, because so many guys have been told, like, you need to take girls out on a date, you need to approach it this way, you need to do this. And I'm guilty of this. On the stream, I say, like, oh, take them out for ice cream or whatever it is. It's not that hard. But that's an old-fashioned way of thinking of, like, we used to actually go out and take people to dinner, take people to lunch. Nowadays, it's just get on an app and go over their house and smash. And like, more power to you.
It is a different world from what we grew up in.
Different world, man. And so all of these,
I blame Steve Jobs. It's all Steve Jobs' fault, man. I'm telling you.
Look, that's why we're here. Is I don't have every single, believe it or not, I'm the guy on this channel. I don't have every single answer for you. But the reality is, like, guys that are trading notes, that are saying, like, this is what I want, this is what I tried, this is what works, and this is the result I got, I'm super happy about it. The guys that are sharing those experiences and the guys that are listening to them, super, super valuable and super meaningful, in terms of their own development. Yep. They're better off for it. So that's where we're coming from on this stream tonight, guys.
Yep. And I think we're coming up on 1 hour right now. I think we are ready to head over to Discord for our after show. Again, link is in the description. If you want to join our private community, link is down there as well. Head on over to patreon.com/thefraternity.
Please do.
$5 a month. We do monthly watch parties, mentoring sessions. It's a lot of fun.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it just to have access to the other guys.
Yeah. So without any further ado, next week, I think we'll have to do next week. Let's call it right now. We're going to do a special show just on our core values. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a deep dive on that.
Not Joe and I's core values, the fraternity's core values.
Yeah, the organization, we're going to go into our core values. We're going to talk about how that correlates to mission, purpose, goals, the whole 9 yards. Owning your shit, doing the work, everything comes together in the core values.
Being coachable, all of that.
All of it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
It's going to be a good show.
Yep. All right, guys. So head on over to Discord. We will see you there in just a few.